So what's next on Dreadzone TV?
And now, for a Vox Sports update, Dreadzone's Extermination of the Day award goes to Shellshock for his
We said
360
Fox Sports
tomahawk
for a
finishing
second there.
move on
They're clearly
Plutonium
going for a
Jones.
parallel.
It was a beauty, Dallas, and it marks Shellshock's third extermination of the season.
At fourth, actually, the Omega Twins count as 2.
Good points. And we're now live with Shellshock for comments. Shellshock?
Those Omega Twins went down like wee little girly men.
Yeah,
So we have-
Shellshock has an Arnold type of personality.
Fresh out of the 80s with the cigar chomping and everything.
Oh my.
And now for a heartwarming story in entertainment news.
Fitting, since it's
Spears
definitely...
has made a
Oh, hey,
remarkable
Courtney.
recovery After a near-death experience last year when she was
Yeah, this is
attacked
also
by
where
two
they start the
psychotic
old,
fans.
well, to an extent Vox, start a campaign of slandering towards Ratchet because they need to prop up their people.
Dallas. I'd
Yes,
just like to
Courtney
take
Gears
those
managed to
stories
survive and has spinned her story to be that Ratchet and Clank were...
Jesus.
You may just get your wish because those very evildoers are about to come face to face with the mighty Shellshock. Catch it all live on Dreadzone.
Okay then.
This was the last PS2 game in the series, wasn't it?
From Insomniac,
Yes.
the PSP games did receive PS2 ports, which added some minor content like extra costumes, but those haven't showed up yet for the backward compatibility program.
But yeah, like I mentioned in our Ratchet and Clank 3 playthrough, it seemed like they were setting up for cast members to return in later games, like with them even going out of their way to say, oh no, Courtney Gears isn't dead, she's alive, only for them to never capitalize on it. I'm like, well, what was even the point then? I guess it was maybe to be a pastiche on, you know, networking and the media painting the good guys as the bad guys, but there's not really much done with that outside the context of Dreadzone, which, as we've established, is a pretty messed up world as it is.
Well, more like Operation, which operating on apparently on a star system. Again, that's the thing that I also mentioned near the beginning. The thing that baffles me is the fact that the game is trying to have the cake and eat two moment of having, you know, this entire operation, which is apparently beyond the scope of the Galactic Presidency and the Galactic Rangers, because they were not managing to find this system apparently, you know. But at the same time, it's something that gets broadcasted on public, basically on, you know, paid TV, but for the entire universe, you know, because with the entire specific goal is to make the most money out of views as possible. So logically, you know, the networking should have locations be traceable, you know, as a result. So it's kind of incongruous that doesn't make these two things ideally gel well, because they want to have the battle royale, or for the, you know, the more younger people, you know, the Hunger Games parallel, you know, but at the same time they're operating on a scale where, technically speaking, the secluded area should be able to be reached. They should be doing probably something like what the Batman Arkham games did, having a justified way why this area is quarantined and nobody can intervene, so the heroes have to solve the situation from the inside.
Typically, when a plot like this is done, it's usually on a more closed network or like a secret base. And typically, the trade-off is it's a high-stakes gambling event, or it's a very, very, very exclusive, super secret underground network where people have to pay through the nose or be of some special status to even witness. But the thing is, no, we get talks about how, oh, you're not as popular here and there, and our network ratings are in the toilet and all that jazz.
It's kind of like, yeah, it reminds me a bit of the, not Paul W. Simon, but the Death Race reboot saga, where at the same time they use Convict for, you know, illegal clandestine type of, you know, racing, not out of Fast and Furious, but almost kind of like. But at the same time, they're so focusing on their stupid market share.
Yeah, it's like, and look, I get it. Ratchet and Clank is about, you know, satire, or at least that's how it was at the start.
Again, sensationalism on TV in this case.
Although in this case, though, it doesn't make much narrative sense. Like, you want to make satire, make sure that your story itself doesn't become exposed to satire of its own, since, well, honestly, you can only do so much by saying that you're pulling a satire or deconstruction of a property here or there. Like, you can't just say or do things without a point and purpose, otherwise you're kind of on the level of what you're critiquing.
Well, I haven't talked much about what your actual support drone can actually do, but again, outside of maybe the cooking personality, they serve, as you can see, for supporting different things. Each of them, while not possessing the same Omni branch that Ratchet has, can potentially activate the same kind of mechanism, so if you don't want to do it yourself, you can order one of them to do it, and you protect them, while another potentially can deploy a shield. They actually send, an EMP that destabilizes shields, or in this case, they activate mechanisms like bombs or, switches that operates on, other kind of, contraptions. If one of them gets downed, you can actually wait on a small cooldown for that to be revived, so don't worry, you're not having... Again, it's kind of like with normal grouping in Kingdom Hearts. Even if they get downed, eventually they get back up, or in this case, it's a bit faster.
They do some interesting banter when you can hear it over the gunfire.
Well, I don't remember who they're voiced by. Again, the thing that I will say this is that one of the more positive things about this game is the voice acting. Outside of every character returning for the role and sounding just the same, it's clear that nobody's phoning in their lines, so I appreciate that. Even the new characters introduced, have their respective voice actors sound like they actually do give a damn, so I appreciate that.
From what I've never really heard anything that suggests that any of the makers or artists or creators hated doing this game.
No, it's not much of that. I think, okay, when it comes to this particular game, okay, I'll wait till this cutscene is over.
Boss fight, again, it's a Ratchet and Clank boss, you know what to expect.
Yeah.
Go on, Pedro.
The Quark inspiration is on point. He even has free fingers like Quark.
I think it's more. I think it's not so much that. It's more so that this was a misguided experiment. I think that's more like what this is. Like this was maybe we can make Ratchet be more like Halo, and it would be an interesting way to switch things up from what we did previously and everything. And
it could be one of those rare cases where this wasn't executively mandated, even though going Halo does feel like something the executives
Remember,
mandated.
these were the years where the word Halo killer started, to pop up everywhere for every single goddamn shooter in existence.
Which is weird, because the PS2 already had an attempt at a Halo killer with the first Killzone.
And if anything, okay, I know that, I still have to properly finally play entirely on my own, but I can tell that, from what I remember hearing, is that Killzone 2 did became, at least for the PlayStation 3, that, Halo killer that they were looking for at the very least. To the point that they even had a teamed crossover with Lost Planet 2 with Capcom, so...
As for why Sony may not have considered it a Halo killer, admittedly, people tend to spout the name more Halo than Killzone, which I think says what you pretty much needed to say, essentially. Not to say Killzone wasn't a success, but I'm guessing it wasn't successful enough that Sony considered it, well, what they wanted, a Halo killer.
Well, it's a thing, Joe, that when the, something killer gets used as a name tag, usually that gets accompanied by very unhealthy amount of expectations from people involved. So...
Yeah.
Which makes me wonder, has there ever been a case where a insert killer has actually succeeded in killing the competition it was set out to kill?
Fortnite.
The closest I can think of is Sonic
because
with
before
Mario.
that there was PlayerUnknown Battleground as the de facto Battle Royale, but ever since Fortnite arrived, it practically stole every single bit of the fanbase it had.
So
guess,
Fortnite was supposed
sure.
to be the PUBG killer when it was first made,
Basically.
essentially.
And okay, as much as my discontent for Fortnite and teams winning is still pretty relevant to this day, I guess I'll take that over PUBG because PUBG looks very miserable as how Battle Royale. So
Yeah, I hear almost nothing good about
well,
PUBG
not gameplay,
these
but about
days.
the look, basically. You know. The thing that people get to know the most about that is the fact that supposedly the Callisto Protocol was supposed to be in continuity with it somehow.
Why?
Because franchising, Jova. Everything is a cinematic
Yeah.
something, you know.
Yeah, I should have seen that coming. Honestly, it's to the point where I think some people are forgetting what it actually means to be a cinematic universe or shared universe or whatnot. Because some people will think, oh, just saying that these are in the same universe automatically will make it a big universe, even though, no, that's not always how it works. It's like some will go off of the mentality of, hey, even though this series doesn't really do anything tying into the games here, it's part of the universe because we said it is. It's like when the producer of Bayformers, Lorenzo, tried to claim that the Bumblebee movies were in line with the Bayformers movies, despite the fact that, no, going off of continuity, that don't work.
Oh, baby, I love this job.
Good for you, my dude.
Basically, the entire operation here on Kronos is for us to take on Shellshock. We had a preview of the boss fight beforehand, and now we basically eventually have to end with his defeat, obviously.
Yeah, this is how a lot of bosses will go in this game. You get sort of a little bit of a warm-up fight with them, as I like to call it, and then later it's for
Not
reals.
all of them. One or two of them will just be very more direct. It really depends.
I think it's more so with the major bosses.
Well, this counts as one of them because the Shellshock is one of the Exterminator squad. The team that Ace Hardlight is the leader of. So.
Oh, exactly. Well, that's why I said major bosses, like, Shellshock being one of those major boss fights.
Again, you'll be able to see eventually, whether or not we're almost at the halfway point of the game anyway, so...
For better or
again,
for worse.
the good news is that despite the oppressing situation, Ratchet and Clank do manage to start getting results very quick.
I will say this also. Like I said, the gameplay really worked for me, and yes, the gameplay lends itself extremely well to multiplayer, as you can imagine.
I will also say this: the shitty quality of the esport mostly gets to be applied to, unfortunately, just the cutscene, because during the gameplay, as far as my memory goes, I never particularly encountered any major, glitches or bugs or stuttering. Again, there's the frame rate drop when there are too many enemies on screen, but as you can see, it seems to be a situation that happened only occasionally, but otherwise, the game is very responsive. It's just during the cutscenes that it fucks up, and I don't know why.
And that's the problem, because a remaster, well, first and foremost, a remaster is supposed to polish stuff up. And the gameplay, that's important. But the cutscenes are, cutscenes are things people can analyze without even playing the game. So if you want to get anything right in a remaster, you especially want the cutscenes to at least not look worse.
Yeah.
Especially because, again, if it's running, I guess it's because it's not running on the same engine that the original trilogy had. Maybe it's because of that, because I don't mind, this had the same work with the original trilogy. And yes, again, occasional bugs were present there, but not to the point of breaking shit up all the time,
Yeah. I get the feeling maybe this remaster in particular was a bit more rushed.
Maybe
than the
that's
others.
that.
It's like, it's
I mean, that's how we got that disturbing picture area.
yeah. That's the weird part, and not to mention compare the fact that this is not kind of like the black sheep in a lot of ways of the PS2 era. I can imagine that Sony probably didn't want to waste too much time and money with this one in particular.
It was also because of the generational gap. If I recall correctly, this remaster came around during that time of, you know, when the PS4 was just about to arrive, if I remember correctly. So it was in that weird kind of state where, you know, the PS3 was still supposed to be, you know, something you care about for stuff like the initial release of, you know, The Last of Us, but at the same time, please also buy a PS4 when it comes out.
You know, the fun thing about looking back at eras is thinking about what this current era will be remembered for eventually, too. Like,
Well,
shoot,
when it comes
we've
to
been
the when
doing
it comes
this...
to the PS5, it unfortunately also the effect of a pandemic hampering things. I'm pretty sure if that didn't happen, the whole jumping towards the new generation would have been more smooth, and it would have been far less shared, you know, games between the generation stuff. Oh, you motherfucker! Use a bouncer against me.
I guess it's the game's way of saying, okay, you can play with them, but your enemies get them too. Which, you know,
Would I say? Gone.
I'll admit, I've always had a bit of a mixed relationship with games that eventually have enemies do things that traditionally only playable characters can do, like, of course, bosses that heal or bosses that get the super weapons that you can also get.
Yeah, it's kind of like
guess-
what we noted that, okay, well, not all the time. Again, the Final Fantasy games have started having a very, very dickish trend of removing from the player the ability to use stuff like ultimate spells like Holy, Flare, and Ultima, and giving those tools usually to the final bosses.
It's like, on the one hand, I get what some people would say. Well, technically, all's fair in love and war, and if you should heal, logically, the boss should be able to heal. And, well, yeah, one could argue that. Keep in mind, the bosses tend to have a lot of cool toys that we can only dream of having or mod for ourselves, never actually have in the base game.
It's amazing how, you know, games like Monster Hunter and Dark Souls instead actually get to this kind of approach while having, you know, you actually being able to get what the bosses do have after you defeat them.
Nice, yeah.
And we talked about this in our playthrough of that game. One particular really dickish boss that I don't hear anyone talk about aside from me is that one fight against Kaios in 13-2, where he can literally, with just one random move, reset his stagger gauge back to 0. Yeah, because that's not frustrating at all.
Well, you see, Pedro, the thing is, that requires most people to have actually played 13-2.
Well, yeah, that is true. No, that's a good point because 13-2 was a commercial bomb. We even talked about back in the day when the game first came out. We even saw someone even shared a photograph of how many copies were just being left there on a store, and nobody was picking up the goddamn game.
Like, if I recall correctly, wasn't 13-2's own failure part of the reason that they immediately greenlit Lightning Returns as well?
Yes, they needed to reach that 10 million sales figure. Basically, they wanted the original game to sell 10 million units because, you know, Square Enix is all about over-exaggerated, unrealistic sales expectations, right? So they made those two sequels cheaply and fastly just to say, see, we technically got to the 10 million number.
I guess if we all count
this is not just me making it up.
This is one total game.
For the record, everybody, this is not just me making it up. Kitase himself said this. You can look this up.
And it checks out, especially when you consider how cheap 13-2 and Lightning Returns are. How 13-2 confused me our first time playing through because it had to reuse assets from Cocoon, but, oh, no. It's totally Pulse, guys. We just happened to find an area that looks exactly like our old home in Cocoon from the cutscene.
Yeah, the bar. Yeah, like they reused the same area of the bar from the first game.
They basically just says that the Nora team rebuilt one like the one that they used to have.
But the thing, that would be fine. That would be fine. The problem is that the level design of said beach is literally the same.
Yeah.
So you're telling me that in Pulse you happen to find a beach that literally is designed the exact same way, shape-wise, and the same mountain design. Wow, that's fucking convenient for the developers, isn't it?
Anyway, it's finally time to defeat Shellshock for good, hopefully.
3 times the charm.
Again, the entire operation on Kronos is dedicated for you to get, you know, to him properly. And it's part of the kind of joke of the satire that this guy acts himself super big, but he flees at the opportunity.
Shellshock was recently named the sexiest robot alive by Vox magazine.
Also, Jova.
Oh my.
Also, Jova. That being said, Jova, here's the thing. Nowadays, the cool thing to do in the Final Fantasy fanbase is talk about how people like me and Taylor have treated those first two games harshly, because now people want at all costs to say that 13 is an underrated masterpiece. Okay, maybe not masterpiece, but they're trying to say that, oh, you know what, 13 is actually really good, and you guys were just unfair.
I mean, I guess it's it's kind of like the situation that you keep saying with Knuckles Chaotix. I think if the game was properly re-released on modern consoles instead of just, you know, the closest that you get is the PC version, which requires extensive support, probably people would have, you know, more of a chance to play it and actually see what the game is for themselves, regardless of what their opinion eventually might be.
I think it's kind of like how a lot of people have romanticized Sonic Unleashed as the god of Sonic games. Like, make it more accessible, and then they'll remember, oh yeah, the metal hunting sucked.
Yeah.
Among other things. But regardless, though, okay, when it comes to the 13 trilogy, from what I see, most people still regard the 13 trilogy as bad. I'll admit I have run into some FF fans who talk about how, oh no, 13's really great, it's misunderstood and has that. That being said,
You also have to try to filter away what is supposedly ironic posting and whatnot.
I feel like in a lot of cases, it's kind of like how some people who praise Apologists praise more so the ideas of that game without factoring in the actual execution of it. Like, yes, 13 has arguably at base some amazing ideas. But the execution, it's like, hey, every time I think about what maybe 13 did well, I go back to actually playing the game. Oh, wait, right, that's why this sucks. That being said, I don't think I've seen anyone really defending... Well, actually, okay, I have seen some people defending 13 too, but when it comes to Lightning Returns, the most people will say is good battles...
I can tell you, I think I did mention even in your original commentary that on a gameplay alone, I would play 13-2 over the first one.
Oh, yes. But
again,
what I mean
my
is
major point of rage on the gameplay is just the game telling me that I wasted my time.
Yeah.
Like, the most common take I see and the one I agree with is, while yes, some sequels did do stuff better than 13, when you actually look at each game as its own package, it definitely feels like it gets worse with each game. Not to say that the gameplay consistently gets worse, ironically, the gameplay might be the thing that actually gets better with each game. The problem is just everything else collapses upon it. 13-2 has a bonkers story and weird priorities in who it wants to make the main protagonist because, hey, yeah, remember Sarah? She's the hero now. And she accomplishes dick all.
And she's as interesting as a wooden board.
Like, again, I get the idea, you know, she was kidnapped the whole time, so why not give her a chance to flesh out her character now that the heroes of the first game have gotten their happy ending?
Literally,
oh wait, it's all gone by the end of 13-2.
Our first Exterminator exterminated.
I always found it weird how they don't give them a more dramatic end. Like, a lot of them will just collapse and boom, that's your cutscene.
Alright, can you please keep your teeth in your mouth, dude?
Yes, because this is pre-rendered.
Celebrating like I won the freaking lottery.
Remind me why I put up with these morons.
Who else would watch Vox News?
Temptation, ass, decapitations. Yeah.
I see what you did there, Insomniac.
Get it. Seems we've underestimated our Lombax friend.
You got lucky. Shellshock was too slow and too stupid to be an exterminator.
So here's the weird thing about the bad guy here. You'd think, if anything, he would want Ratchet to ascend up higher to make the match against Ace all the more exciting, but no, he wants Ratchet out of the way. It's like, if you want him out of the way, why did you even bother putting
He
him
wants him as cannon fodder so that he can prop up his team.
His luck won't last.
Fair enough, but again, I always feel like the idea should be then to, like, rig the system so that Ratchet gets up high enough so that he's a really big deal, and then take him out.
I don't know what to tell you. Vox works with, you know, rating shares in mind, first and foremost, so you have to work with that. Anyway,
Well, again, that's
airship
the
time.
thing.
In this case, again, you have to destroy a bunch of turrets. There will be more missions similar to these later, but those will be sped up. Go on,
It's like I said before, yes, I get that he has a market share in mind, but even with that in mind, a lot of his plans don't make sense. Like, it feels like somebody with, like, a tertiary knowledge of how ratings works wrote the plot, which is, again, weird, because they've shown that usually when they do their satire, they have done their research, typically.
I don't know what to tell you.
Oh well.
You mentioned the graphics earlier. Okay, here's what I think. There's only a handful of PS2 games that managed to make more realistic graphics, but not look dreary as shit. The Pro Skater games, for one.
Or Metal Gear.
I wouldn't put... Okay. This isn't... I wouldn't say this is as bad at doing that as, say, Shadow the Hedgehog, but it's still not great. I mean, I know we're playing the blown-up PS3 version. I don't think there was this one. Was there much of a graphical upgrade to you?
Well, more like upscaling of the renders, as in less less you know, jagged borders.
I guess.
I'll be fair, on base for a PS2 game, it does not look bad. No. My issue is more so just how it actually makes it look weaker than the original in some regards.
Anyway, after you deal with the mission of the plan, you need to do the tournament inside the main arena of Dread Zone. Normally, that's where you would have to fight the exterminators, but because we have dealt with Shellshock, we should be having just a random gauntlet.
Clank, did you see me out there against that Shellshock guy? Yeah, I saw. Oh, yeah.
You worry me, Ratchet.
Come on, Clank. Can't I just enjoy the moment?
Do you realize how many other heroes they have killed? Here, watch this.
And now for a Vox News action update.
The new season of Dread Zone is underway and on pace to break ratings records once again. This year's contestants include the notorious mafia crime boss known as Ratchet, seen here at his Mokhtar estate.
And to think that other networks actually call him a hero.
It's truly sad, Dallas. Other notable contestants include Ratchet's ruthless robotic accomplice, Clank.
I never did
that looks like something you see in those parody things.
And lucky for us, the Vox All-Star Exterminator crew,
you know, those really creepy anti-piracy videos.
Okay, so here's one thing that's also ironic. So this is Vox News, clearly a shady, villainous network, but they try to paint the good guys as bad guys, even though anyone who's tuning into this network should know that they are shady, so you should probably take the opposite of what they say to moralistic
They're really
value.
trying to spin the narrative to what they want, even if it will not work for them. That's part of the joke.
Why would a hero kill other heroes for money?
Not money, Tin Man.
Aye.
Fun.
I do not understand.
Also, Youngblood disease is taking you too.
You traitor!
Yeah.
Do you think this is some kind of game?
That's exactly what it is, Furball.
Yes, a PS2 game specifically.
I'll see you soon.
Also, if you pay attention, the goggles, not only for, you know, his Hardlight, but also for Al, instead of having a reflection, they're transparent, meaning that you can see what's behind the character model. I generally hope that this is something that is also for this version. In the original, it wasn't like this.
Probably. Remember, like the problem with the problem with taking these games and putting them in rendering them in widescreen is that you can tell that there's some visual elements that were clearly not meant to be seen that they just left in there because whatever, it's in 4:3, so the black screen blocks it. But then you take off those black bars, and suddenly the visual imperfections that the original developers left in are now, barefaced there for us to watch. So
the thing is that I don't think what I said really applied to that specific, so I don't know. Alright, let's go check our ranking. Let's see if we managed to get up. Well, not a lot, but hey, at least Kid Nova and Hydroger are still going. Same also for Agent Zero, actually, so cool on them.
The action is hot in the Battle Dome as Ratchet takes on the Avenger.
Plot twist is the 1997 version of Avenger. We need to fight Sean Connery at the end.
1998.
Sorry.
Wait, humanity? But we've never seen any humans in this galaxy.
Again, it's the classic fault of a fictional media that it's set in a very, very specific type of fictional universe, but still uses common way of saying that we, the audience, use that, that such would be very understandable to us, but make no sense, in universe. Again, case in point, the Millennium Falcon. Because, I get the idea, it's... Okay, I can imagine, especially believes, tells me that, a creature like that would exist in the Star Wars universe, but I would have to ponder if Luke actually is at the point of the story has any knowledge about what that is.
Yeah, I think Insomniac's last game with human characters in it was...
Spider-Man 2?
Oh, before this game was the Disruptor.
Okay, I haven't played yet. I know that the game did, but I think it involves robots. I'm not sure if it involves actually humans or not.
I'm pretty sure there was a human in it.
Okay, again, I'll trust you because I don't know about that. And considering this,
I don't know.
Considering that one I think was not published by Sony, I don't think we'll have much of a good chance of seeing it, soon enough. It's kind of like with the Rocket Robot on Wheels for Sucker Punch, or Keith the Thief for Naughty Dog, if anyone even remembers that. There we go. Like I said, the platforming is still there. We even had an example with the grind rails before, which did add a bit of an extra component by having enemies shoot you while you're on the grind rails, which, forces you to work with your target. But, no, fortunately, it's still not as much as you would have when you have Clank on your backpack. Let's get on to the other arena. Shit, with turrets. Also, I know it's relatively clever, but each of the enemies that type that you fight specifically here in Red Zone Arena are meant to be properly connected to one of the Exterminators, basically. So it's kind of like on-brand minions.
Mm-hmm.
Oh well.
I will say the music. Okay, well we've talked about how
we haven't talked about
Halo.
the composer. Is it still David Bergeron?
Herbed.
Oh.
Oh, never mind. There he is. Go on, this.
Is it still David Bergeron as the composer?
I'll just check real quick.
whoever it is, they were definitely on a
yeah,
big...
it's still David Bergeron.
Yes,
Well, in that case, he was definitely on a big Matrix run for this soundtrack.
Again, the music there is nothing really special, nothing that I will really remember. But again, nothing that I will say that it's, you know, grinding my, grinding my ears. It's just a thing in the background that happens, which is, I guess, you know, serviceable. But you know, I kind of wish I had something to remember.
Yeah, ideally we want something that's so good that we'll hum it, but... And again, this is a thing a lot of games go for. Sometimes they settle just for what works as background music, which was sadly a mentality that we got when video games started to be more cinematic with the PS3 era, essentially.
Also,
not to say every game was like that, of course, it's just, you know...
Also...
The approach for more... The approach for a more cinematic approach. You go on to you.
Also, if you pay attention, like I said, the leveling up of the weapons comes back with a vengeance for a very good reason, because, like, they do... Shit.
You tried.
They do, if I recall correctly, the maximum level that they get is 50 this time around, so the game expects you to play these missions a lot, actually. Probably also with a different, you know, difficulty options. So
I think that's because this game is relatively shorter compared to its predecessor.
yeah, it's basically again, it's like we said, we're also almost halfway through with the game. So again, it's a relatively short experience that you can complete in, let's say, 6 hours tops. You know, and I don't mean 100%. At least finish the story, and you know, and that counts, you know, normal difficulty. I'm pretty sure that on easy you will probably have, you know, much more smooth time. So it encourages replayability probably, but again, I'm sorry, like, as much as I think the gameplay is perfectly fine, it wouldn't really be the Ratchet and Clank game that I would love to have challenge mode for, you know, even if it's a stuff thing.
It's like, again, while there are aspects I definitely like about Deadlocked, I'd really only do the main narrative.
And there you go, complete the tournament gives you a new 2 for you armor.
Boy, that doesn't look like Master Chief's armor at all.
Ratchet went on to pilot a tanker ship for Zexon.
A week later, Ratchet got drunk and crashed his tanker into the ocean world of Equados. Who can forget these graphic images of baby seals smothered in radioactive waste? Little Coco never had a chance.
How could you? What did
I will
little
say this,
Coco ever do
this
to
kind
you?
of social commentary has surprisingly aged well in today's internet panorama.
No, I was just, you know, I mean...
Come on, guys.
Okay,
We need to get out of
can
here
you please
before we
stop
all wind up
jerking
dead.
around?
What's the plan?
I have been
Clank, I
chatting
can't
with
stop
the
skipping
droid on the
frames. How
operations
could this be?
level. She may be able to provide the blueprints for...
It seems as if the time-space continuum seems to stop every now and again.
Fox has eyes everywhere.
Alright then, tune in for the next part where we go, if I recall correctly, to the frozen planet, Shars, I think that was called. See ya.
See ya.
See ya.
Yeah.